On June 3, 2026, the Marine Corps flew its last AV-8B Harrier over Cherry Point and shut the engine down for good. Then, it did something strange. It replaced the most dangerous aircraft in American service with a jet built on the exact same bet. 45 Marines were lost flying the Harrier, and a third of the fleet with them. Yet the Marines didn't walk away from the design that did it. They bought it again in the F-35B. Underneath both jets sits one engineering choice, a single loop that separates the aircraft that brings you home from the one that doesn't. Get it wrong, and you've got the Widowmaker. Get it right, and you understand why the Harrier was retired the moment it finally won. A Harrier in a hover is doing something no normal airplane can survive. At zero forward speed, the wings make no lift, and the control surfaces have no air moving over them, so they do nothing at all. The jet hangs on engine thrust alone, 4 nozzles rotated to point straight down, ducting the Pegasus turbofan's exhaust at the ground. That keeps it up. It does nothing to keep it steady. To stay steady, the Harrier uses a separate system called reaction controls. High-pressure air is bled off the engine's compressor and piped out to small nozzles, which pilots call puffers, at the nose, the tail, and each wingtip. Push the stick forward and the tail puffer fires, dropping the nose. Move it sideways, and the wingtip puffers roll the jet. The rudder pedals fire side jets for yaw. In the hover, those puffs of bleed air are the only thing answering the controls. The design documents put it bluntly. Without the reaction control system, the Harrier in a hover is uncontrollable. Here's the part that matters. A hovering jet is not naturally stable. Left alone, it starts to tip and drift, and it does it fast. On almost every modern aircraft that can hover, a flight control computer watches that drift and corrects it automatically hundreds of times a second before the pilot ever feels it. Engineers call that the stability loop. Sense the wobble, correct the wobble, sense it again. The Harrier had almost none of that automation. The loop still had to be closed because physics demands it. But on the Harrier, the thing closing it was the pilot. One hand on the stick, feet on the pedals, the other hand working the throttle and the nozzle lever. All of it moving together several times a second to catch a jet that wanted to fall out of the sky sideways. He wasn't flying the airplane so much as being its flight computer. By hand. Hold on to that, because it's the single idea this whole story turns on. One loop. On the Harrier, a human closed it. Everything the jet was loved for, and everything it was feared for, comes straight out of who was closing that loop. And on June 3rd, the Marine Corps retired the airplane without ever retiring the idea. So why did the Harrier make a man do a computer's job? The answer is in the size of the hole it pushed air through. Anything that hovers is standing on a column of air it throws downward, and how hard it pushes depends on how big that column is. A helicopter spreads its lift across a rotor disc 50 feet wide so the air leaves gently and the machine rides a wide soft cushion. The Harrier had no rotor. It made all of its lift through 4 small nozzles and a fan. The number engineers use for this is disc loading, the pounds of weight carried per square foot of disc. A heavy transport helicopter runs around 15. The Harrier's equivalent disc loading in the hover is over 1,800. That gap is the whole problem. A wide, lightly loaded disc is forgiving. It stores energy, it settles slowly, it gives the pilot time. A tiny, ferociously loaded one is the opposite. It answers everything instantly. A gust, a stray control input, the wash of its own exhaust off the deck, with no cushion underneath. Picture standing on a balance beam versus balancing on a basketball. The beam lets you catch yourself. The basketball demands a correction every fraction of a second, forever, with no rest. The Harrier was the basketball. And the corrections were never simple. To hold a hover, the pilot worked the nozzle lever to aim the thrust, the throttle to set its strength, and the reaction controls through stick and pedals to fight the tipping. 3 separate channels, by hand, continuously, while sinking toward a deck with the engine at full power. There was no autopilot to fall back into. Under all of it sat one more fact. The Harrier had a single engine. One Pegasus with no second to limp home on. In wing-borne flight, that's a managed risk. In the hover, it's absolute. Lose thrust on that column of air, 100 feet up at 0 knots, and there's no glide in no time. The only thing left is the ejection seat. So that was the bet. To reach a short deck or a strip cut into a tree line, the Harrier accepted a hover with no stability margin, no engine backup, and a stability loop closed by a human being. For decades, the Marines bet the reach was worth it. The reach was real. So was the bill. The bill came due in a number the Marine Corps lived with for 30 years. The AV-8B's Class A mishap rate, the worst category of accident. The ones that write off the jet or worse ran around 11.5 per 100,000 flight hours. In the only terms that matter, that's roughly 3 times the rate of the FA-18 Hornet flying beside it, and about 5 times the rate of the A-10. Same era, same kind of work, 3 to 5 times the loss rate. Over 31 years in American service, that arithmetic added up. Around 143 major accidents, roughly a third of the entire fleet not retired, not sold, but destroyed. The men who flew it gave it a name that needed no explanation: the Widowmaker. The Los Angeles Times, surveying the record, called it the most dangerous aircraft in American service. Most of those losses didn't happen in combat, they happened in exactly the place we've been describing: the hover, and the transition into and out of it. That's where the wings are dead, the margin is 0, and the loop is closing fastest. A conventional jet barely visits that regime. The Harrier lived there, on every vertical landing and every shipboard recovery, and it asked the pilot to be the stabilizing computer through every second of it. Here the skeptics have a case worth taking seriously. Look at the Harrier's actual war record, and it runs thinner than the legend. In the 1991 Gulf War, the AV-8B's precision was poor. The official air power survey credited it with only a handful of precision-guided strikes across the entire conflict, and 5 were brought down by surface-to-air missiles. Set the cost against the damage on target, and a hard question forms. For a jet that asks so much of its crews and bombed with a sledgehammer, was it ever worth it? On those numbers alone, the answer looks like no. That's the case against the Harrier, and it's real. It also holds only half of the same number, the half that explains why the Marine Corps, knowing every line of that bill, turned around and bought the exact same bed again. Here's the other half. Read the danger and the reach as 2 separate facts and you'll argue forever. Put them together as one fact and the story snaps into focus. The thing that made the hover so unforgiving, the tiny, savagely loaded disc with no margin and a constant demand for correction, is the exact thing that made the Harrier small enough and self-contained enough to fight from places no runway exists. You don't get one without the other. The instability wasn't a defect bolted onto a useful airplane. It was the price of the capability, charged in the same coin. And that capability wasn't a brochure line. In the Gulf War, 86 AV-8Bs flew around 3,300 sorties at better than 90% mission availability, working from an expeditionary strip as close as 35 nautical miles from the Kuwait border. While other aircraft burned an hour each way from distant runways, the Harrier was already there, parked at the edge of the fight, turning around in minutes. The same physics that made the hover so dangerous is what let it live at the front. Proximity was the product, and the unstable little jet was the only thing that could deliver it. So the Marine Corps faced the question the whole retirement turns on. They wanted that reach forever, and the capability was never in doubt. The only thing they wanted gone was the part they could never make safe, the loop closed by a human hand. And by the 2010s, for the first time, they had a way to change that one part, and nothing else. That machine is the F-35B. Strip away the stealth and the sensors, look only at how it hovers, and it's the Harrier's bet line for line. A single engine, thrust vectored down through a rear nozzle that swivels about 95 degrees in 2.5 seconds, paired with a lift fan to hang the jet on a column of thrust. It's the same STOVL bet, the same physics. A tiny, high-loaded footprint, with no natural stability of its own. With one difference, and it's the only one that counts. On the F-35B, nobody closes the stability loop by hand. A digital flight control system closes it, sensing the drift and correcting through the nozzle, the fan, and the roll posts, hundreds of times every second, faster and more steadily than any human can. The pilot commands where to go. The computer holds the hover. The loop the Harrier handed to a man, the F-35 billion handed to software. That's the entire move. The Marines didn't decide the Harrier's bet was wrong. They decided it was right, so right that they rebuilt it and kept every part of it except the one part it could never make safe. Which is why the Harrier wasn't retired the day it became obsolete. It was retired the day its idea became survivable. So watch what actually flew away at Cherry Point on June 3rd. 5 Harriers from VMA 223, the Bulldogs, the last squadron, lifted off, held formation over more than 5,000 people, came back, and shut down for good. 55 years of Marine jump jets ended on that flight line. But the bet those jets were built on didn't end with them. It taxied past the crowd in a different airframe. Every F-35 billion that lifts off a flat-deck amphibious ship, every Marine fighter that works from a road or a battered strip in the Pacific instead of a vulnerable main base, is flying the Harrier's Wager, the small jet that goes where the runways aren't. The idea didn't die. It graduated. That reframes the whole record. Those 45 Marines weren't lost proving a mistake. They were closing a loop by hand that the technology of their time couldn't close any other way, holding open a capability the Marine Corps refused to surrender until the machines caught up and could hold it for them. The Harrier was a prototype the Marines flew in combat for half a century, while the computer it needed was still being built. This channel takes aircraft apart by the engineering decision, under the headline, not the headline itself. If you'd rather have the physics than the press release, subscribe. And here's the question worth sitting with. We sort old aircraft into 2 bins. The successes we keep and the failures we retire. The Harrier fits neither. It was retired precisely because it succeeded, because the one flaw it could never fix, the loop a human had to close, was finally fixed in its successor. So when a machine is dangerous for the very reason it's irreplaceable, and gets replaced only once something can do the dangerous part safely, did it fail? Or did it win, and just not live to see it? Tell me where you land in the comments. Was the Harrier a failure the Marines put up with, or a bet that paid off a generation late?